You are seriously not going to believe some of this stuff about the Middle Ages. Knights, castles, sure, we know that image.
Hmm.
But have you ever really stopped to think about what ordinary folks were actually, like, eating back then?
It's a great question because it wasn't easy.
No kidding. Forget fancy supermarkets. Life was genuinely hard. We're talking constant wars, famines, plagues.
The Black Death, yeah, major disruption.
Exactly. So, the big question for you today is, what on earth did medieval people eat just to survive? And, get this, was there really a medieval version of fast food?
It's pretty mind-blowing when you dig into it, isn't it? We often focus on the big historical events, the battles and kings,
Right.
but the daily reality, especially food, was fundamental. It really makes you rethink those romanticized pictures.
Totally. And that's exactly what we're diving deep into for you today. We're kind of setting aside the kings and queens for a bit.
Focusing on the everyday person.
Yeah. We're exploring what life, and specifically mealtime, was like for your average medieval peasant. And honestly,
Yeah.
some of the stuff we found about their quick meals is genuinely surprising.
Hmm.
Oh, and by the way, if you enjoy this kind of historical exploration, you should definitely check out my YouTube channel, The Time Cabin. We do more deep dives into the past over there.
It's those everyday details, like you said, that often reveal the most fascinating things
Right.
about how people really lived.
Mhm.
Easy to overlook, but so important.
Okay, so paint a picture for us. What were the actual day-to-day struggles these peasants faced? It sounds, well, pretty brutal.
Oh, you're not wrong. Their existence was incredibly precarious, fragile even. Constant warfare could just destroy harvests and livelihoods.
Right.
Widespread poverty meant access to even basic things was limited.
Mm.
And then, yeah, these devastating plagues like the Black Death just wiped out huge chunks of the population.
Yeah.
Just getting through the day, surviving those conditions, that was a major achievement in itself.
Seriously makes you reconsider complaining about a delayed grocery delivery, eh? So, given all that chaos, how do historians even figure out what they were eating centuries ago? Did they leave behind medieval cookbooks or something?
Huh. Sadly, no surviving medieval food blogs, no. But think about everyday objects. Pottery, for example.
Okay, pots and pans.
Exactly. Essential for cooking, storing food. What's really amazing is that modern science, chemical analysis,
Yeah.
can now look at the tiny microscopic traces left inside these old pots.
No way. Like food residue?
Molecular traces, yeah. These pots basically hold the secrets to meals eaten hundreds of years ago. It's incredible.
That's like historical CSI, molecular secrets in pottery. So what did these ancient food clues actually reveal? Spill the medieval beans.
Well, okay, these analyses show some really common dishes. Stewed cabbage pops up a lot.
Okay, cabbage. Makes sense. Easy to grow.
Exactly, and nutritious. But they also found clear evidence of mutton and beef.
Ah, so meat wasn't completely off the menu for peasants?
It seems not entirely, not an everyday thing for most probably, but it was there.
Hmm.
And here's a really key insight for you. Significant traces of dairy.
Dairy, like milk, cheese.
Yes. Butter, cheese, milk. It was so vital, it was often called the white meat of the poor.
White meat of the poor. Wow, that really paints a picture.
It highlights just how crucial dairy was for protein, for calories, especially when other food sources were scarce.
So lots of hearty stews, maybe some cabbage, and this white meat, milk, and cheese. What did a typical day actually look like for a peasant? Food-wise, I mean, it must have been back-breaking work.
Oh, absolutely. Picture a relentless cycle. Manual labor, pretty much sunrise to sunset.
Doing what?
Plowing fields, tending livestock, gathering firewood, just the basics for survival. Their meals had to fuel this intense physical effort.
So simple and filling, I guess.
Exactly. Simplicity and substance were key. Their diet really revolved around what they could grow or raise themselves right there.
So probably no leisurely three-course lunches in the fields then.
Huh? Highly unlikely. Staples were things like bread, but not usually wheat bread.
No, why not?
Wheat was often for the wealthier classes or lords. Peasants relied more on barley or rye bread. Hardier grains grew better in tougher conditions.
Okay, barley or rye bread. What else?
Porridge was huge, likely made with oats or barley again, mixed with whatever vegetables they could grow in their little garden plots.
Simple stuff.
The key thing is that direct dependence on what was local, what was basic.
Right, that makes total sense. Now, what about meat? You said the pottery showed beef and mutton, but it wasn't a daily thing. How did they get any meat?
Correct. Meat was a genuine treat for most peasants. Maybe occasionally they'd supplement their diet by poaching?
Poaching, like illegally hunting.
Exactly. Small game rabbits, birds. But this was super risky.
Why risky?
because hunting rights, especially for larger game, belonged almost exclusively to the nobility. Getting caught could mean serious trouble.
Ah.
So, for the vast majority, meat was a very, very infrequent thing on their table.
Okay, so mostly plant-based, hearty grains in the countryside. But what about peasants living in towns or cities? Was their food situation different? Maybe a bit more varied?
Yes, definitely, potentially more variety in urban settings.
Hmm.
Professor Cassidy Yoder's research at Radford University really highlights this.
Oh, so.
Well, think about it. Cities had markets, trade routes, bringing in different goods, more people living close together.
Right, more options available maybe?
Potentially, yes. For instance, if you live near a monastery, you might benefit from the grains and vegetables the monks cultivated.
Ah, interesting.
Larger towns would likely have better access to fish, maybe pork, even beef that could actually be bought in a market.
So, city peasants were kind of living the medieval culinary high life.
Well, relatively speaking, perhaps. But, and this is a big but,
Uh-oh.
urban life had its own major dietary challenges. Sanitation was often terrible.
Ah, yeah. Leading to that classic don't drink the water problem. Did everyone just survive on ale all day?
Well, that's actually a really common misconception. Historian Jim Chevalier has pointed out that while yes, drinks like beer, ale, mead,
Me, fermented honey, right. Sounds kind of fancy.
it does, mead and fruit juices too were very popular. But medieval texts do mention sources of clean, safe drinking water.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't all bad water.
Not necessarily.
Mm.
People likely drank ale and other things for various reasons, flavor, maybe a perceived safety from the fermentation process, just cultural habit. But water wasn't universally avoided like the myth suggests.
Mead, like a medieval sports drink. Any other interesting beverages kicking around?
Well, spiced apple cider would have been pretty common, refreshing.
Nice.
And monks were known for brewing various tonics using herbs and things.
Hmm.
They believed these had health benefits.
Medieval health drinks.
Sort of.
Yeah.
So yeah, while water was available, there was definitely a wider range of drinks than just ale.
This is all fascinating, but I keep circling back to this medieval fast food idea. Surely, after a long day plowing or whatever, they weren't always up for cooking a big meal from scratch.
You've absolutely hit on something there. It's really surprising, but yes. Despite all the hardship, crowded cities like London actually had street vendors selling ready-to-eat food.
Wait, what? Seriously, medieval street food? Like,
Yeah.
what were they selling? Medieval kebabs?
Not exactly kebabs, but the concept is incredibly similar. They sold things like meat pies.
Oh, okay. Handheld pie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Savory, portable, pastries too, filled with various things, even pancakes sometimes.
Pancakes. Wow.
Perfect for workers, travelers, or people who just didn't have cooking facilities or time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, a medieval equivalent of grab-and-go fast food. It definitely existed.
That is absolutely wild, but my modern brain instantly worries about hygiene. Were these medieval food stalls exactly clean?
That is a very good question. And the honest answer is probably not always.
Uh-oh.
There were definitely some, shall we say, less scrupulous sellers. People reusing spoiled ingredients, trying to pass off old food.
Oh, gross.
In fact, there was even an old proverb, God sends the meat, but the devil sends cooks.
That says it all. Some things never change, do they? Okay, so savory snacks on the go. What about sweets? Did medieval peasants have a sweet tooth?
Well, sugar, as we know it, was incredibly rare and expensive in the early Middle Ages.
Right, like only for kings.
Pretty much. It was a total luxury. Honey was the main sweetener for most ordinary people.
Honey. Okay.
But as time went on, especially after the exploration of the New World and increased sugarcane imports, sugar started to become gradually more affordable.
Ah, so eventually a medieval sugar rush happened. Did they start making, I don't know, medieval donuts?
Sort of, yeah. As sugar got cheaper, Europeans definitely developed more of a taste for sweet things. Pastries filled with fruits, nuts, spices became much more popular.
Okay.
And get this, there are even accounts of marzipan being molded into these super intricate shapes.
Marzipan, like the almond paste.
Yeah, shaped into little sculptures, almost like edible art. It was a massive status symbol, showing off wealth.
Wow. From basic barley bread to fancy marzipan art, that's quite a range. And I'm guessing that fancy stuff was strictly for the nobles, right? How different was dining for the upper crust compared to the peasants?
Oh, the contrast was huge, almost unbelievable. While peasants had simple, often communal meals out of necessity,
Right.
nobles had these incredibly elaborate feasts, not just about eating, but about display.
Displaying what?
Power, wealth, status. We're talking roast and peacocks, sometimes redressed in their feathers, stuffed swans.
Stuffed swan, seriously.
Seriously, sometimes even making mythical creatures out of different kinds of poultry stitched together. It was pure spectacle, a clear statement of their place in society.
It sounds like a medieval reality cooking show, but focused entirely on showing off how rich you were with elaborate bird carcasses.
Uh-huh. That's not a bad way to put it. And the etiquette was different too. They often used communal plates, shared utensils, reflecting that communal aspect at their level.
Right.
But there were also odd expectations. Like, women were often expected to eat less, to appear more delicate or refined. Even just how you ate was loaded with social rules.
Always about appearances, even at dinner. Now, we've talked daily grind, fancy feasts. But what about the really dark times? You mentioned famines, extreme hunger. There were even mentions of, well, cannibalism. That sounds utterly horrific.
It is. It's a deeply disturbing part of history to even consider. Some historical records do contain accounts that suggest cannibalism during the most extreme famines, but historians often debate how widespread or literal these accounts are.
Okay.
However, there are more documented cases of absolute desperation during long sieges. Horrifying stories, like starving Parisians supposedly grinding up human bones to bake into a kind of bread.
Oh my God, that's unimaginable.
It just shows the absolute desperate lengths hunger could drive people to. Grim reminders, really.
Yeah, really makes you appreciate, well, everything. But it couldn't have been all grim, surely. What about holidays, celebrations? Did peasants get any special treats then?
Oh, absolutely. Life wasn't constantly bleak. Holidays like Christmas, Easter, various saints' days, these were times for celebration, even for peasants.
So what would they eat then?
It would be a change from the norm, maybe some salted fish, dried apples, preserved meats that they'd saved, foods that were a bit more special.
A bit of a feast, relatively speaking.
Exactly. And like we touched on, sometimes leftovers from the Lord's massive banquets might actually trickle down to the poorer families.
Oh, right. Hand-me-down swan.
Uh-huh. Maybe not swan, but perhaps some extra bread or meat. And very occasionally a farmer might even get a gift from the Lord, maybe a pheasant or some venison. These moments of, relative abundance would have been hugely significant.
A medieval Christmas bonus. Okay, let's quickly loop back to that medieval fast food. We know about the dodgy ingredients. Any other downsides to grabbing a pie on the go in medieval London?
Well, beyond the very real risk of getting sick from rotten meat,
Yeah, that's a big one.
the main issue was the lack of effective regulation. There might have been some laws trying to control food quality, but enforcing them without proper inspections or penalties, it was really difficult. So consumers were just very vulnerable to dishonest vendors. Convenience definitely came with risks.
So, buyer beware, medieval style. Makes you think twice about that sketchy food truck, doesn't it? Okay, what about the seasons? How much did their diet change through the year?
Massively. It was completely tied to the agricultural calendar. No refrigeration, remember?
Right. Big difference.
So winter meant relying heavily on preserved foods, things they'd salted, smoked, pickled during the autumn harvest. Lots of hearty stews with stored grains like oats and barley.
Warming food for cold weather.
Exactly. Then summer brought fresh produce, greens, vegetables, fruits, so meals would become lighter, maybe salads dressed simply with vinegar and oil.
Salad, okay.
It was all about resourcefulness, using preservation techniques cleverly, adapting to what was available, and of course, big regional differences too. Heartier soups in the north, maybe more olive oil and citrus in the south.
Makes sense. Eat what grows when it grows. Simple, but effective. But food isn't just fuel, is it? What about the social side? Religion. How did that play into things?
Oh, a huge role. On so many levels. Sharing meals was fundamental for community. A family eating together, a village feast, it built bonds.
Yeah.
The noble banquets, as we said, were all about reinforcing hierarchy, showing off status.
Right, the peacock effect.
Exactly. And religion was deeply intertwined with diet. Think about fasting periods like Lent.
Ah, right. No meat for Lent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Certain foods were forbidden, others permitted, so people relied more on fish, eggs, dairy during those times.
These religious rules really shaped eating habits and became ingrained cultural traditions over time.
So food was community, status, spirituality, not just survival. Looking back at all this, what are the main things that stand out? Any lessons for us today, maybe?
I think there are a few key takeaways. First, just their incredible resourcefulness, using every scrap, wasting nothing. That really contrasts with our modern food waste issues, doesn't it?
Second, the importance of community. Sharing food, communal meals.
Yeah.
That sense of mutual support feels relevant.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, maybe that balance they had, often imposed by circumstances. Periods of simple eating, periods of feasting. It's a different rhythm to our often constant access to everything. Moderation and indulgence had a cycle.
That's really insightful. Resourcefulness, community, maybe a bit more balance.
Yeah.
Fascinating stuff. Seriously amazing.
Yeah.
So the Middle Ages, yeah, tough times, but definitely not just mud and misery when it came to food. There was real ingenuity there. From basic stews to risky street pies, every meal, simple or grand, tells a story.
It absolutely does. And it's a powerful reminder that connecting over food and figuring out how to nourish ourselves, that's a constant human story across all times and places.
Totally. So, next time you're ordering delivery or grabbing a burger, maybe just give a quick thought to those medieval folks hawking meat pies on a London street. Our ancestors weren't always so different. And maybe, just maybe, thinking about how resourceful they had to be with food, maybe it can inspire us modern folk to be a little less wasteful. Just something to chew on for you.